This and all talks at the 2020 JavaScript for WordPress conference are brought to you in part by our sponsors Frontity and GoDaddy Pro. Frontity is the easiest way to create performant websites using WordPress and React. It connects both seamlessly so you can focus on building your site instead of all the tooling and configuration. Open source and free to use. GoDaddy Pro Hosting offers a robust suite of free tools to web developers and designers to help them save time managing all their clients and sites. Your free membership also includes advanced 24/7 technical support.
So good afternoon. I'm very excited to see so many of you here on the talk about getting blocks from code to Plugin Repo. Hi, Milana. And you can follow along on this link. I just need to find the button where I do the sharing. Hang on. I thought it's here. Okay. So the sharing part is the bit.ly JS4 WP-Pauli is the link. The talk. So my name is Birgit Pauli-Haack, and I'm the curator, publisher of the Gutenberg Times, and also a co-host on the Gutenberg Changelog podcast. And we have weekly e-news if you subscribe on the website, gutenbergtimes.com. And we also have a video channel that's on YouTube, which is youtube.com/ you guessed it right, Gutenberg Times. What we're going to talk about today is two parts. One that takes us probably about 20 minutes is talking through the Create Block official scaffolding tool for a single block plugin. And then we also give you a little preview on the block directory that is coming into WordPress 5.5. It's already available in the Gutenberg plugin, so you can play around with it. So that's going to be really cool. Just a warning, when I applied for this talk, I had the hope that everything would be a little bit further on. So some of the documentation and some of the tools that are there would be available though. But I will have links for you where you can kind of watch the thing to, especially block directory, evolve. Of course, if you subscribe to any of our news on the Gutenberg Times, you will also be informed on a weekly basis. And I also have an announcement. So the Gutenberg Times, we have a live Q&A on the block directory, a new way to expand WordPress on August 6th. It's going to be 2300 UTC, which is a little bit outside the American. Well, America, it's not that hard. It's 7 o'clock Eastern time, but it's very hard for Europeans to join us. But we will have a recording, and it will all be published on the Gutenberg Times, of course. So let's get started. What do you need for the prerequisite for using the Create Block Scaffolding tool is you need to have on your computer installed Node.js. And if you're already here and you're doing some development with Gutenberg or with headless, you probably have that already installed. You also probably have a local website tool that gives you a WordPress site where you can develop in. I use local WP, but you can also use others, like the desktop server from ServerPress or the local dev from Pantheon. You need an IDE, a text editor. I use Visual Studio Code. And also as a terminal, you need a terminal app. That's and I use Term 2 for that. And that's pretty much it. Of course, you need to have a WordPress install or a WordPress test site, development site that is from the latest one, 5.4. But probably would be good to have Gutenberg 8.5 installed. That came out, 8.5.1 that is installed now there, because that have the latest scripts there. So Okay, so then you can get started with, you navigate to your local website's plugin directory. For local WP, that would be local sites, and then the site site URL, and then app/public/WP content /plugins. And in general, you just go to the WP-contents /plugins directory, and then you could do the fast way and just hit npm init at WordPress/block, and then your slug of the plugin. Like this example is to-do list, or and then once it's going through, you go to to-do list folder, and then start with npm start, and then you can start developing. What I found is that this fast way, that's why maybe it's fast way, because there are so many different things where you need both the namespace, your personal your brand namespace, and the development slug, or the plugin slug, to prefix variables, to prefixed folders and everything else, or classes. So I actually prefer the interactive mode. But if you use that fast way, you can add a namespace to it. Here are some options that you could use, like namespace and value, -- title and value, -- short script. So you can kind of, like WP CLI, when you start a new site and you put the whole command in all the variables in there. What you also could do, and that's my preferred version to use create block script, is the interactive mode. You customize it with getting a prompt from the command line, type in the value that you want for that, and then it builds the whole thing. So the question, so for beginners, I recommend that as well, as again, because of the plugins directory for your local WordPress. But when I say beginner, I would say it's, if you are a JavaScript developer and new to WordPress ecosystem, it probably helps you going to interactive mode. Or if you're a PHP beginner and who just learned JavaScript, or PHP experience and just learned JavaScript and block development, it kind of gets you really started without and abstracting a lot of different things that you might need to worry about if you do it all from scratch. So the questions for the interactive mode are, well, of course, the plug plugin. That's kind of that's the directory it would be in. That's also the first, the plugin the folder or name.php is then the first plugin that's put in there. And then the next question is the internal namespace. That can be your brand or your products, series of products. And then the namespace plus the block slug will be referenced multiple times into that. Of course, the display title would be helpful for people who use it, and the short description as well. So these are the first question. Then, of course, it will ask you for dash icon. It's optional. If you know the name of the dash icon, that will be your icon for the block. Use that. Otherwise, you can always change it later on. Then the category name, that's important if you want to be in common or formatting or layout section of the plugin inserter. Also careful, those categories seem to be changing. I saw a GitHub issue flying by. I didn't read it closely, but they seem to be changing, being a little bit more descriptive. And then, of course, the name of the plugin author, don't forget that, as well as, and the last three questions are short name of the license, the link to the license, and the current version. I prefer to just hit enter on all of them and use the default values, and we definitely can change that later. Yeah, so, oh, hi, everybody. Hi, Peter, thank you very much for the shout out of the, that's wonderful. I appreciate it very much. So now we have all the questions answered, and we hit enter on that the last time, and then it gives you, so this is again a screen that happened when I put everything in there. The example that I have, it's called FL, like for Florida Charity, and it's the internal namespace is W4G. The display title is Florida Charity Text, and it's a mandatory text that every nonprofit would need to display on any of their donation forms. So I thought that maybe we should put in a Gutenberg block and have a few variations for that. You won't see the end product of it because I'm still figuring out the bugs, but it helped me to put the screenshots together. So for here, category name is common. I use the smiley as a dash icon, and of course my name on it. So, and then it creates the folder, it creates the block.json, we talked about that, and it creates the package.json, and then it installs the modules, and it tells you it's gonna be a minute or two or so, a few minutes. Actually what it does, it downloads all the good things from Node into your Node underscore modules. And when you, that's a lot of modules which have their own dependency of dependency and dependency. And so it will be quite a few folders and quite a few files that will be downloaded. This particular one actually downloaded 154 megabytes to my hard drive. I don't have problems with my space, but it was it might be a little bit disconcerting for people who are new to the modern JavaScript world, and I wouldn't blame them. I also have yet to find a reason to explore any of those folders for troubleshooting reasons or so. It's probably quite, and that's probably because I'm quite new to that, and I say, okay, it's one less thing that I have to worry about. It never got in my way, and it's very easy to upgrade those. And once in a while, I go through my development hard drive and just kick all the Node modules away and then start from scratch. You definitely want to make sure that the directories in your git ignore a file, so you don't upload it to the repository or have people download it when they get your plugin. So now it's installed and downloaded. It takes less than what I was talking about, but I just wanted to point that out, that might be disconcerting, and it's okay. Yeah, don't worry about that too much. So the plugin and the block is now available with 4 more steps or 5 more steps. You go to your CD into your directory now. So you're in wp-content/plugin/your block or FL Charity. Then you run the command npm run build. Then you go to your site and activate the plugin and open a post and use the block. So you see, and you see what's on the screen, yeah, how the plugin looks, and it's all the information taken from my inputs on the original command. So let's look at the directories and files that are there. First, in the plugin root, you find 4. You find 6, but we talk about 4 files. One is the FL Charity PHP. That's the plugin entry, so to speak. Then the block JSON file, the README text, and the package.json. So the README text and the Florida Charity PHP are used for the plugin directory at WordPress.org and for the plugin admin pages. The block.json is actually a fairly new format to communicate block metadata, and that can be used in both client-side as well as server-side register block type functions. there is right now we're in the transition phase. I think in WordPress 5.5, the methods are available to do the render block type or make the server aware of blocks installed, as well as the JavaScript layer of your application. So, but there's a transitional phase, and that's why I like the interactive mode on this tool so much, because we have some redundant information that needs to be put in a few places, and to have it consistent, you just put it in once and then have it all set up. So the header information, that's in the in your plugin PHP, the here in the FL-Charity PHP, that has the plug name, the description, the version, the author, the license, and it's called package with the namespace W4G. In the resource at the end, I have a list of, there's also the documentation for the header information, what else you can put in there. What I would do probably beyond that is to put in the URLs for the plugin where the plugin can actually be downloaded, and also a URL for our author site, kind of thing. So, and that's how it looks. We saw this already, but I just wanted to repeat that just so you can see it from the header information. Then you have a README text, and the README text information is also easily edited afterwards, and you, if you need to change something, but it's used for the plugin installation part and the checks against the WordPress version that's required. And also the PHP version that you put in there is required for your block plugin. It's also needed for, so there's also something highlighted that says tags. If you put in block, then it will be automatically added to the block directory. It might not show up in the block editor yet on the sites, because there are a few more requirements. We talk about it a little later. So next, also block.json. That's, I don't know if that code is really visible. I switch between code on white and code on black. I'm sorry about that. For this one, I also brought you a human readable form. So, and because we are running Create block in interactive mode, I wouldn't have to fill in any of the information that is here. It shows why the namespace and the block name are combined to the namespace. The name of the plugin is W4G/FL-Charity. So that automatically in there, I don't have to remember to think about that. And it had all the category, the icon, the description, and the text domain, and also the edit script, the editor style, and the editor scripts and the style. And we are pointing the block.json file to the build directory of our plugin. As I said, it might feel redundant a bit, putting that all in the header, in the header information, in the README text, in the block.json, and then later on into the files as well. Okay, so we got that. And then the package.json defines the JavaScript properties of your project, and it's a standard file used by NPM for defining properties and scripts it can run. It's not specific to WordPress, but the scripts that are mentioned there are all WordPress forward scripts that bundle the tools and configuration needed to build the blocks. Yeah, so here's it again, if we had some trouble seeing it. So the build part transforms your code according to the configuration provided, and it's ready for production and optimized for best performance. The format.js would help you enforce coding style guidelines for JavaScript files. So does lint.js and lint CSS. The start command transforms your code according to configuration. So it's ready for the development. The script will automatically rebuild if you make changes to the code, so you can see the build errors in the console. And that is why it's really helpful to use something like Visual Studio Code, VS Code, because they have the terminal window right there next to your code. And you see when you hit build or when you make changes and save them, and what the build process does with your code. It's quite interesting sometimes. And then there's a packages-update command, and that updates all the WordPress packages to use in the project for the latest version. Oops, sorry. So the first one, in the FL Charity PHP, we only looked at the header. Now we look at the PHP code to register the scripts via plugin init. And then we pointed to the index _JS as a variable, script assets as variable, and then we register the script with as the plugins URL plus index.js as a dependency. And then we have this do the same with editor _CSS, also pointing to the build directory. We saw that also in the block.json, so you're kind of repeating that here too. Sooner or later, you can build that from the block.json file. Right now, the tool automatically built that for you, so you don't have to write that. So it's all there. And then the end of it is the register block type on PHP with the editor script, editor style, and style. And I've just put in the bottom of the block.json file for remembrance that that's exactly also what you have in there. Again, yeah, so glad that this was all automatically created and I don't have to write all that. Okay, next time is, now we can go to the SRC folder, which means source. That's where your JavaScript source code and your style sheets actually live. And they are, that's the scaffolding part. They are to the minimum what you need to have a block in the editor as well as in the front end. And you have 5 files there. One is called edit.js, that's the code needed for the block editor, and editor CSS, the Sass file for the editor styles. The index.js is setting up your block, and then the save.js is the rendering for the front end, and or holds the rendering for the front end, and style SCSS is the Sass file for the block styles. Now, if you I would highly recommend that you use Sass in all your styles, because then you can your build process minimize that, or but you can use variables and all this other goodies from the Sass CSS. All right, so next, you see a little video. Does it work? Yeah, it runs. Oh, it's not a video, it's a Jiffy. And that is a scroll through the index.js. Now that you're in the heart of the, in the center of the problem now is, or the center of block building, you get scaffolded a lot of comments in the code, as well as links to resources where you can read up about that specific command or a script or option that is in your index.js. In a future version of the scaffolding, some of the information, again, will be pulled from the block.json file, but not right now. And so this is just the anatomy of a block. You all saw this probably 15 times already in this conference or in general, but that's kind of the anatomy of the block. The only thing is that the scaffolding tool separates the edit and the save functions into their separate files, which I really like that much, very much. So I'm just took that over. So next part is the edit.js starts with importing the translation module, and here you see there are a lot of comments, and there are links to learn more about things. So this is very well done by Greg Cholkowski and the team that was working on. I think Fabian also worked on this in the meantime. So and then the second part of the edit JavaScript file is you get into the meat of the matter. The code becomes more annotated, and here's an example of it's not biggie. Yeah? It's just a paragraph as a block, but it shows you, okay, this is where it goes. And that's where you build your block for the editor. And then the save.js only renders it what's rendered on the front page. And those are static blocks for now, but that's how, where you do all your work, hopefully. Then we have two more files at the editor SCSS and style SCSS. And they only have, I just wanted to point out that the class name are combined the namespace with the plugin and WP block. So those class names can be unique as soon as you select unique slug-in namespaces. And the tool then creates those automatically for you in that. And then you can kind of stay within that name convention for that. And this is, what you would see if you would go to your plugin file, your website, and then use that block in there. That's on the left-hand side, you see the editor paragraph block, and on the right-hand side, you see what's the front end. That's pretty basic, but that's all bundled in that create block thing. There are two more files in the root directory. One is editor config. It's a unifying, so editor .editor config is trying to unify the coding style from different editors and IDEs. You can learn more about at editorconfig.org, and the git ignore is your friend. You list files and directories that are excluded from your Git repository. Make sure that the node underscore modules folder is in the dependencies, and other dependencies are in that repository for now. Okay, so now so we have done all our programming that we wanted to do. Now it's a build process. That build process, if you start out with npm start, that build process happens every time you save something. But you can also use it then, okay, I'm done and I now want to build this. It takes the files in the source code and builds a production ready file. And we're just going to look at those files as well. So in the build directory, you find index.js, that's your editor script. Index.css is your editor styles. Style.-index.css and your block styles. And then the index.assets.php are assets administration for your plugin. You also see again the references from the block.json file that point actually to the build directory, and those are the same file names, as you can see. So let's look at the index.js file. Yeah, that's kind of really nice. Yeah, it could be a very good feature image for a programming session or a blog. This is good for speed. The index, the JavaScript is all minified, but it does not have any readability. So it's quite practical that the build tool does that. Let's also look at the other files. And I put all 3 files in there because there's not much in there. That's your job, putting more styles in that. So these are quite barren right now because we haven't done anything with them yet. So that's it for now. That's the Create Scaffolding tool. That was only an introduction. There is a live coding show with Greg Cholkowski as well as with Fabian Kegi on and we have a transcript and documentation. And Fabian was introducing how to use third-party templates for the scaffolding tool. And it was quite interesting to see. So if you want to go, if this is too basic for you, go there and let Fabian show you the ropes of that. But if you're creating a lot of blocks, this is definitely helps you streamline the process and just get you right to the block writing part. So how do you get it into WordPress repository? Right now, bad news, it's still a manual process. There is a plugin handbook, and the links are in the end of the resource, in the resource slide, sorry. There are certain things that need to be happening about security and about a third party and all those different things that are already guidelines for the plugin repository. But what I promise you, so I'm going to show, look in the chat window if there are any questions or comments. It doesn't seem that way, except for, yeah, hi again, Milana, hi, Peter. So, okay, let's go into, I have another 15 minutes. I probably don't need it, or 20 minutes, but a few minutes I still need. So the next thing I wanted to show you is the new blocks directory. So if you go to wordpress.org/plugins/browse/block, you see all the blocks that have in their README file the tag block. And there need to be single block plugins. And if you don't know how this is going to look, or if you haven't heard about the block directory yet, I also brought you a little video that shows you how that would run in Gutenberg. So how do I get, oh yeah, here. I need to go over here and I need to start that video. So you use the inserter, you look for something and it's not part of your thing, but I'm looking for a card, and now I can add the block to my site without leaving the editor. And right there, I can pick up a picture, fill in the information that I need, and I can continue working on my pages without having to leave the editor and not, so I don't have to, so the process now is to, if you need a new block, you save the draft that you have, you go into the plugin repository or page, go add new plugin, look for the repository, come back, install it, activate it, and then go back to posts, add, select the post that you were working on, and then you get the plugin or the block. So this is really a cool feature that the developers have kind of put in. It's still a little bit it's in the works still, some of the tools, but let's see what is necessary or requirement to get your single a single block plugin into the repository so it can follow that process of installation and activation in the background. The block directory, to get it into the block directory, so it needs to be available with. So the block directory will come with WordPress 5.5 to all WordPress users. You need to have a single block plugin, as I just said, but it can have children. It can have children blocks. They're allowed. So, for instance, you can have a list block with list items block children about that. They are only used for that particular. They are not available otherwise, except for if they are in that plugin. The README text needs to have the tag block, needs to be tested up to 5.5, needs to be a GPL license, only have minimal PHP code, and then needs a place with PHP assets. So I have just pulled again the README text from my plugin where that is. And then you see here, that's the display of the card block from the video, where you have the name, you have an icon, and then you have a description that comes from the header. The characters, it's not reading all of the header. I have not seen any specification how much they read, but they also show from the plugin repository the ratings, the active installs, and when it was last updated. So it's really quite, and of course who the author is, and if the author had other blocks as well. So you could kind of look for other blocks there as well. So if you have single block plugins in the repository, you should kind of look for them and update them as soon as possible, so WordPress users can find them within their block editor. What also required that you have at least one registered block type function in PHP or in JavaScript, that the block.json at a minimum presents a script or editor script, and also at a minimum one style or editor style. So again, that's the section of the block.json that will drive that. So that's the block directory that I can show you about. There are, and again, August 6, 2300 UTC, that's 7 o'clock in Eastern US. We will have that live Q&A where Alex Shields and Kelly Dawn will be there, and we're finalizing all the rest of it there. So, and the resources, this slide, all the links are working. So for the create block, we have the link to the NPM package with some nice the description of it. The tutorial for developers is still in the works, but Marcus Kazmarek is working on that. And then there is a block editor handbook. That's the big, how to do blocks and all the APIs, or be it the plugin API or the format API, the block API. You can read up about it all in the developer handbook. On the right-hand side, we see the ones for the plugin repository. There's one, the header requirements, the general guidelines for plugins, and the handbook for plugins on WordPress.org. And then for the block directory, there are submission guidelines available. They are still in the works. It's a work in progress. It has not been yet officially released, but of course you can preview that and also comment on that if you want to. Then there is a block plugin validator in the works. So, and the link works. You just need to log into your WordPress.org account, and then you can check the plugins, what is needed or so. But keep in mind that is in hot development right now. But it's a good link to bookmark for later on. And then there is a list of available blocks. That's the screenshot that I had, and then the draft and discussion of the plugin guidelines. So that was a fast run through the slides and the two things. What are your, do we have any questions?
There's one question that we got. Is it necessary to be concerned with making changes like fixes to a custom block plugin where things will break for instances of the block already in use on pages? Am I worried unnecessarily? Is this risk of breaking blocks any greater than breaking non-block plugins?
So there is a method to, sometimes you get this interesting notification that the block has changed, the block has changed with an external source, and that would require a deprecation section on your block, so the parser knows, okay, that's a wanted change, and I can see what was the previous one versus the current one. There are some. I know that a lot of companies and block builders get around that using dynamic blocks, where the block is the editor is still in JavaScript, but the front end rendering is built in PHP, and that doesn't happen. It's especially when you pull in other data from your database, from your WordPress site. Yeah. Okay.
If there are any other questions, please put them in the chat or using the Q&A feature.
Yeah, Mike just said that this is so great, can't wait for this to go live. When I don't know exactly what this is, but the block directory, that's maybe a month away. August 11 is WordPress 5.5 release date. If you have Gutenberg 8.5.1, that's already available there. So you can actually play around with the block directory. The create block is already available. It has been for quite a while. It just not has been made public that much. And I'm very intrigued by it in terms of how it gets you started on the single block plugin to actually put it into the block directory. So those two get really well together. Yeah. All right. Yeah, you're right, Milana. This is a game changer. Yeah.
Cool. So I guess if there aren't any other questions right now, how can people reach out to you if they have any questions afterwards? Or
yeah, so my Twitter handle is BPH. That's my initials, Bravo Paul Hotel. Also Gutenberg Times, at Gutenberg Times on Twitter. You can also reach me at Pauli, Pauli, at gutenbergtimes.com. And I'm in the WordPress Slack. Yeah, ping me anytime you have a question. Well, look at the time zone. Yeah, so you might, to manage your expectations a bit, if I would answer in my sleep. I don't normally. Yeah. So, and yeah, well, Milana, this is a no pitch song, so I cannot. I'm also the team rep for the Bees team, which is block editor end user documentation. And Milana is actually heading temporarily the developer documentation for Gutenberg as a team rep. So if you want to write, if you want to contribute to WordPress, don't know exactly where you want to start, and you can write English well, and you know the block editor, yeah, our team is really good for you. And afterwards, you really know the block editor and can teach it to anybody else, yeah, if they have hurdles to overcome. Mostly it's fear. Yeah. There's another question, or was it?
Yes, there's one more. Plugins that are hosted on WordPress.org, the text domain must match the slug of your plugin URL, WordPress.org/plugins/slug. This is needed so that the translation from translate.wordpress.org works correctly. is this not true for the single block plugins?
Oh, so you mean the translation needs to have the same text domain as the slug from the WordPress plugin?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That definitely would need to be documented. Well, maybe it is already documented and I did it wrong. Quite possible. Yeah. So that's definitely a question for the plugins directory when of plugins channel or the plugins team after they publish their documentation. Yeah, don't go there and do it now. They are. Oh, hi, Craig. Well, he's the hero, and without him, I wouldn't have done this presentation. So, big hugs to Poland and Greg Cholkowski, and I will miss you. He's going into sabbatical, he told me. So, Greg, I guess we need to do a little research on that. Thank you.
Awesome. Making change happen right here on the live stream.
Yeah. And JavaScript for WordPress. Yay.